The Dark History of Halloween. Real Tragedies. Halloween, a night of costumes, candy, and celebration. But beneath the fun and festivities lies a darker history, one marked by genuine tragedy, unspeakable crimes, and heartbreaking accidents. Today, we're examining the most horrific events that have actually occurred on Halloween, from ancient times to the present day. This isn't about ghost stories or urban legends. These are real events that changed lives, devastated communities, and in some cases, altered how we celebrate Halloween forever. Before we begin, I want to note that we'll be discussing sensitive topics including violence and loss of life. These stories deserve to be told with respect for the victims and their families. Let's begin with the origins of Halloween itself. Halloween traces back to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. Celebrated over 2,000 years ago in what is now Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France, the Celts believed that on the night of October 31st, the boundary between the living and the dead became blurred. While we don't have detailed records of specific tragedies from these ancient celebrations, we do know that Samhain was a time of animal sacrifice and ritualistic practices. The Celts may have built massive bonfires where they burned crops and animals as offerings to Celtic deities. These were dangerous gatherings where fire-related accidents certainly occurred, though specific incidents have been lost to history. When Christianity spread through Celtic lands, the Church attempted to replace Samhain with All Saints' Day on November 1st, and the night before became All Hallows' Eve, eventually shortened to Halloween. But the association with death and the supernatural never disappeared. Now, let's move forward to documented tragedies in more recent centuries. October 1940, London, England. During World War II, the German Luftwaffe conducted many of the most devastating bombing raids on London during late October 1940, amid nearly nightly raids. These raids were part of the larger Blitz campaign that terrorized British cities. That October, German bombers dropped hundreds of high-explosive bombs and incendiaries across London. The raids killed dozens of civilians and destroyed countless homes and buildings. Families who might have been celebrating Halloween, albeit in a subdued wartime fashion, instead huddled in air raid shelters, listening to the explosions above. One particularly tragic incident involved a direct hit on a shelter in the East End, where multiple families had taken refuge. The exact death toll from these specific October raids varies in historical accounts, but it remains one of the deadliest Octobers in recorded history. The 1940 October Blitz serves as a stark reminder that real-world horrors can eclipse any supernatural fears. For Londoners those nights, the monsters weren't fictional. They were all too real. Fast forward to October 31st, 1974, Deer Park, Texas. This date marks what many consider the most notorious Halloween crime in American history, the poisoning of Timothy O'Brien, an 8-year-old boy who died after eating candy laced with cyanide. But this wasn't a random act by a stranger. The poison came from someone who should have protected him, his own father. Ronald Clark O'Brien, an optician drowning in debt, had taken out life insurance policies on both his children. On Halloween night, he gave Timothy and his daughter, along with 3 other neighborhood children, pixie sticks candy that he had laced with potassium cyanide. Timothy ate the candy that night. He complained of stomach pain and vomiting, then collapsed. He was rushed to the hospital but died within hours. Thankfully, the other children either didn't eat the candy or were stopped before they could. The investigation quickly focused on Ronald O'Brien. The evidence was damning. He had recently inquired about purchasing cyanide. He had taken out substantial life insurance policies on his children just weeks before Halloween, and he had been the only adult who could have tampered with the candy. O'Brien was arrested, tried, and convicted of capital murder. He was executed by lethal injection in 1984. The media dubbed him the Candyman and the man who killed Halloween. The case had far-reaching consequences. It fueled nationwide paranoia about trick-or-treating safety and gave rise to numerous urban legends about poisoned candy and razor blades and apples, most of which proved to be hoaxes or greatly exaggerated. But Timothy O'Brien's death was horrifyingly real. His murder fundamentally changed how many Americans approach Halloween. Hospitals began offering to X-ray candy. Parents started strictly supervising trick-or-treating. Some communities moved away from door-to-door trick-or-treating entirely, opting for organized events in controlled environments. The Tylenol murders connection. Just 2 years before the O'Brien case, in late September and early October 1982, the Chicago Tylenol murders created nationwide panic that would peak around Halloween. 7 people died after taking extra-strength Tylenol capsules that had been laced with potassium cyanide. While the deaths occurred in the days leading up to Halloween rather than on Halloween itself, the timing created mass hysteria during the 1982 Halloween season. Parents across America feared the copycat poisoners might target Halloween candy. Many hospitals and police stations offered free candy screening. Some municipalities considered canceling trick-or-treating altogether. Though the Tylenol killer was never caught, the case revolutionized product packaging, leading to tamper-evident seals we see today, and intensified existing fears about Halloween safety. The fire tragedies, Halloween costumes, and decorations have been responsible for numerous fire tragedies over the decades. One of the most devastating occurred on October 31, 1963, in Indianapolis, Indiana. At the Indiana State Fairgrounds Coliseum, a massive fire broke out during a Holiday on Ice show. The fire killed 81 people and injured more than 400 others who had come to celebrate Halloween evening with entertainment. The fire was caused by a propane tank explosion, and it spread with terrifying speed through the aging wooden structure. The tragedy led to significant changes in fire safety codes and building regulations across the United States. The National Fire Protection Agency highlights hundreds of fires tied to decorations each year, with about 47% starting because decor was too close to heat, and approximately 32% involving candles. USFA estimates about 9,200 fires in the 3-day Halloween period between 2017 and 2019. The NFPA consistently reports that Halloween is one of the most dangerous days of the year for fire-related incidents. Decorative lights, candles, dry autumn decorations, and costumes made from synthetic materials create perfect conditions for rapidly spreading fires. One particularly heartbreaking pattern involves children whose costumes catch fire, candles, or open flames. In multiple documented cases, children leaning over jack-o'-lanterns or standing too close to fireplaces have had their costumes ignite, resulting in severe burns or death. These tragedies led to regulations requiring flame-resistant materials in children's costumes and widespread public education about Halloween fire safety. Halloween is statistically one of the deadliest nights of the year for pedestrians, particularly children. A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA Pediatrics, analyzed 42 years of data and found that children are more than twice as likely to be killed by a vehicle while walking on Halloween evening compared to other evenings throughout the year. The reasons are straightforward but deadly. Increased foot traffic, excited children running between houses, dark costumes that make kids less visible, drivers distracted by the unusual activity, and in some cases, impaired drivers. October 31st, 2014, saw a particularly tragic example in Santa Ana, California. three teenage girls, 13-year-old Lexi Perez, 13-year-old Alexandra Perez, and 13-year-old Andrea Gonzalez, were struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver while trick-or-treating. The driver was later caught and convicted in 2015, but 3 young lives were lost on what should have been a fun evening. Similar tragedies occur with heartbreaking regularity. In 2018, a 3-year-old girl was killed while trick-or-treating in Chicago when a vehicle struck her. In 2019, multiple children were injured or killed in separate Halloween night traffic incidents across the country. These deaths have led to increased safety campaigns, recommendations for reflective costumes, earlier trick-or-treating hours, and heightened police presence in residential neighborhoods on Halloween. The Itaewon Crowd Rush. This deadly event occurred in the Itaewon neighborhood in Seoul, South Korea, on October 31, 2022. This recent tragedy deserves mention as one of the deadliest Halloween incidents in modern history. Over 100,000 people gathered in the narrow streets of Itaewon to celebrate Halloween, a holiday that had been growing in popularity in South Korea. The celebration took place in a sloped alley only about 11 feet wide. As the night progressed, the crowd density became dangerously high. People at the top of the slope began falling, creating a domino effect. What followed was a devastating crowd rush. 159 people died, and nearly 200 were injured. Most victims were young people in their 20s and 30s who had come out for a night of celebration. The tragedy shocked South Korea and the world, leading to intense scrutiny of crowd management and safety protocols at large public gatherings. Survivors described scenes of absolute horror. People unable to breathe, unable to move, watching others lose consciousness around them. First responders worked desperately through the night, but the dense crowd made rescue efforts extremely difficult. This tragedy serves as a grim reminder that Halloween celebrations, particularly in dense urban areas, require careful planning and crowd management. The Seoul Halloween crowd rush is now studied by emergency management professionals worldwide as a case study in crowd control failures. Sadly, Halloween has also been the backdrop for various violent crimes over the years. In 2008, a 12-year-old boy named T.J. Darasaw was shot and killed while trick-or-treating in Sumter, South Carolina. He was caught in a crossfire during a confrontation that had nothing to do with him. He was simply walking with friends dressed in costume and collecting candy. Halloween 2019 in Long Beach, California, saw multiple shootings at various Halloween gatherings, resulting in several deaths. The combination of large crowds, alcohol, and pre-existing conflicts created volatile situations. In 2019, a mass shooting occurred at a Halloween party in Greenville, Texas, leaving multiple people dead and many injured. There's also a disturbing pattern of domestic violence incidents on Halloween. The stress of the holiday, combined with alcohol consumption at adult parties, has been a factor in numerous cases of assault and even murder within households. Statistical analysis shows that Halloween ranks among the top days for violent crime in many urban areas, particularly involving young adults at parties and gatherings. Haunted house accidents. The commercial haunted house industry has always seen its share of tragedies. On October 31, 1984, the most infamous haunted attraction disaster in U.S. history was still fresh in memory. The Six Flags Great Adventure Haunted Castle Fire in New Jersey, which killed 8 teenagers earlier that year. The blaze, fueled by highly flammable construction materials and a lack of sprinklers, shocked the nation. Although the fire didn't occur on Halloween night, it haunted the season that followed. Parents and lawmakers questioned whether such attractions were safe at all, and it led to stricter codes nationwide. Other accidents occurred on or around Halloween itself. On October 27, 2001, just days before Halloween, a 14-year-old actor named Caleb Rebb was accidentally hanged while performing at a haunted hayride in Sparta, Michigan. What guests first thought was part of the act turned out to be a real emergency. His death devastated the community and underscored the dangers of mixing elaborate stunts with dark, chaotic environments. And in late October 2021, in Berea, Ohio, an actor at a haunted house accidentally stabbed an 11-year-old boy with a real knife instead of a prop. Thankfully, the child survived with only a minor injury, but the near tragedy highlighted the risks of lax safety checks during the busiest Halloween weekend. These incidents reveal that the horror of haunted attractions isn't always make-believe. When stunts, props, and crowds mix in dim, chaotic environments, accidents can and have turned deadly. The reforms that followed many of these tragedies remind us that safety must come before scares, especially on Halloween. Halloween, for all its fun and tradition, carries with it a documented history of genuine tragedy. From ancient times to the present day, October 31st has seen accidents, crimes, and disasters that have devastated families and communities. The deaths of children like Timothy O'Brien and T.J. Darasaw remind us that real dangers can lurk behind the manufactured scares. The crowd crush in Seoul, the Indianapolis fire, and countless traffic fatalities demonstrate that even celebration can turn deadly when proper precautions aren't taken. But perhaps there's something to learn from examining this dark history. Many of these tragedies led to important safety reforms: tamper-evident packaging, flame-resistant costume materials, increased pedestrian safety awareness, and better crowd management protocols. As we celebrate Halloween, we honor the victims of these past tragedies by taking safety seriously, by watching our children carefully, by driving cautiously, and by ensuring our celebrations don't put others at risk. Halloween doesn't have to be dangerous, but remembering its dark history helps us ensure that future Halloweens are filled only with the fun kind of scares, not the real ones. Thank you for watching. Please drive safely, supervise your children, and have a happy and safe Halloween.